Welcome to Fresh Off the Boat. I'm delighted to be chatting with Tanvi Gala, a student I've known since 2013, but haven't met her since she went to college. I remember meeting you when I visited Bombay and then working with you on various aspects of identifying right colleges. And the application seems like ages ago. How are you doing, Tanvi?
Hi, Arjun. It's so nice to be here and so nice to talk to you after so long. I am doing great. I am currently in lockdown in my apartment in Brooklyn, fully working from home. Um, very used to working from home by now, and honestly, just eagerly waiting for things to open up.
I hope things do turn out to be better soon. I just wanted to use this opportunity to have a conversation and get our listeners and viewers to know a little bit about your journey, academically speaking, and also, of course, you've been working and at two sort of startups, one investment fund, and now in a very new tech startup, which we'll get to know of a little bit. So the first question for you, Tanvi, is I wanted to know if you were already sort of when you were thinking of the US and then when you ended up at NYU Stern, what did you actually to settle down and feel comfortable in that environment?
Yeah, so I was super excited to be arriving in New York and about to spend the next 4 years, maybe more, in one of the biggest, greatest cities there is. I had never been to New York before, actually. So there was this extra excitement because it was all super new, and I'd only known the city from movies or TV shows. I was definitely a little overwhelmed and a little nervous. I'm sure everybody is, because it was going to be a completely new environment, away from my parents. I was, your typical South Bombay little girl who's always lived with like her parents, and everything's been taken care of. Focus was always just school, and then suddenly I had to do my own laundry and like keep my room clean. All of those things make new friends. And then, of course, study, which was the number one reason that I was there. So it was all exciting as well as overwhelming. And settling in, touch wood, worked out really well for me because, again, I was in New York. I came to NYU with 6 other friends from high school. So I already knew some people, and I think all this is universal across all colleges in America and otherwise. There were a lot of events the first week that we were there, just great opportunities to meet new people, meet your fellow peers in your classes, in your specific schools, as well as mingle with people from other schools within the university. So I ended up actually meeting some of my best friends the first week of college, like during welcome week. I remember it was, we were going to the US Open. It was one of the events that was organized for the Stern class. And on the subway there, I met these two girls that are now my best friends. So settling in was definitely, it worked out really well for me. And it was difficult being away from parents, but it was also super exciting because I had all of this freedom and independence, and I was making new friends, and there's so much to
That's
do.
great. That's awesome. I think you've had a pretty positive experience and you've sort of continued those relationships. That's fantastic. So my next question is more about, the academic choices that you made. Did you go in thinking that you'll be going to Stern? And then within Stern, what tracks did you sort of explore? And finally, what opportunities and resources did you use and you found really useful at Stern? So yeah, pretty much about your academic journey there.
Yeah, definitely. So I went into NYU with an offer from Stern. So I knew for sure that I wanted to go to business school before, I came to college, before my freshman year. But I definitely had no idea what I was going to do once I was there. And I think this applies for a lot of people that, do liberal arts or any other field like history or media. There's just so many options out there. Our generation is super spoiled for options, and in a way it's a good thing, especially when you're this young and like in college, because you just get to spend all of these semesters exploring different classes, trying to pick and choose what you're interested in and what you want to do. And so I ended up with two majors. I did a major in finance, which was something that I decided earlier on. So it's something I would say like halfway through freshman year, even by the end of freshman year, I knew that one of the majors that I wanted to do was finance, but the second one was still a big question mark up until I would say junior year, where I was taking more classes and I realized that it would be great if I can get some technical skills. And so I decided to pick up a data science major. And one other thing over there is, and one of the big reasons, I'm not going to lie, that I took data science is that it's a STEM major. And so I get 3 years of work authorization right out of college, which was obviously a great selling point, especially because in my junior year, Trump got elected. And so, a lot of that was like a big red flag for international students, obviously, who wanted to stay in the country, because a lot of companies now were not sponsoring visas for jobs for international students. So, yeah, that was my journey and the two concentrations or majors that I picked up at Stern. I also did a minor in studio art at Steinhardt, which is another school within NYU. That's one of the advantages of US colleges in general. You can also kind of stray away from your main school and try to take classes outside of school. It's actually a requirement to take certain credits outside of your school, and that way you can explore other areas that you would have otherwise not considered. And that's how I ended up with an art minor. And to be honest, there are so many resources at schools, whether it is clubs, whether it is advising, whether it is, your peers. Maybe you have some seniors from your high school that were at the same college who are like 2-3 years above you. There are all of these resources available. And of course, professors are a great resource as well.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good summary of your journey.
Yeah,
Specific to a day in the life of a NYU Stern student, there are many students I work with currently who have this question: what is business school like at the undergrad stage? Why should we do business at the undergrad stage? You can always look at it as an MBA. So there are two questions. One is like, what is it special? What is so special about the day, or how the week is planned, or the
yeah,
semester? And then, of course, the difference between doing an undergrad versus an MBA.
yeah. That's an interesting question. I feel like there's this misconception that when you go to business school, you have to be like in a suit every day, or at least that was the misconception for Stern. It just happened to be that a lot of kids on campus were either working part-time in an office where they needed to wear a suit, or people were always recruiting or networking, which is why they were like dressed professionally. But typically when you're a freshman, sophomore, you look like a regular freshman and sophomore. It's nothing crazy. I think one of the big selling points for going to business school is just getting like there's always that argument that you could do an MBA instead. But I think with business school as undergrad, it's essentially giving you a head start on, the business world, whether it is, you could be interested in anything. Like you could want to work at a hedge fund, you could want to go into investment banking and then private equity, or, investments, like wealth management, private wealth, etc. There's so many options once you enter the finance world, and you get to explore them at a very young age and kind of figure out what it is that you're interested in. I think MBA school, a lot of the value comes from the title itself, as well as the networking opportunities that you get from MBA schools. And those exist even at undergrad, of course. You're going to be networking. No matter what school you're in, you're going to be making friends with people that you may eventually have business connections with. But I personally, now that I have an undergrad from business school, don't think I need an MBA unless it was for a job opportunity or for a promotion. So
That's
yeah.
great. So your first job was in a startup investment fund, and so many students who are looking at finance would want to know more about different tracks for career paths in
Mm-hmm.
terms of finance majors. What are the typical route students took to find jobs and opportunities in this field? Could be iBanking, funds, etc.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I think some of the main or most popular fields, I would say, from Stern at least, were consulting, investment banking, sales and trading, and then maybe wealth management, I would put as like the fifth option. Um, and so even within investment banking, then there's capital markets, there's like DCM, ECM, like debt side, equity side. There are different groups within investment banking. There's also risk management, which is a separate like team division that a lot of people go into. So there are a lot of options. Consulting, accounting are like pretty separate, but they're also pretty popular. There are, just like a lot of consulting jobs available in New York. And so I would say, yeah, those
That's
are the
So
main.
how was your journey from the investment fund to now the new startup?
Yeah. So about my journey, I started recruiting heavily to get a job at one of those big banks, like the big names out there. I saw all of my friends recruiting and talking about these prestigious jobs, and I was totally, down to kind of race to get the best junior year internship out there, because that is the most important internship that typically converts into a full-time job. So if you want to work at Morgan Stanley, if you want to work at Citi, you have to get a junior year summer internship, right? So recruiting for that started like end of sophomore year, early junior year, and I was going down that route. I actually did not want to do investment banking because my freshman year summer, I did an investment banking internship in Mumbai and realized that that's not something that I'm super interested in and something that will drive me. So I went on the market side and I wanted to go into sales and trading. I ended up getting a sales and trading job at one of the big banks out there. And it was an internship that kind of really helped me solidify what I don't want from my full time job. And it really helped because it made me decide that I do not want to be working here full time at a really big company. I would rather be at a much smaller company, a startup where I can make a difference, where I can see different aspects of, business, and not just kind of be siloed in a particular field. And so I ended up with a full-time job at an investment fund, which was a startup, and I was their only financial analyst. So it was really exciting. I built a lot of models for them. It was new and they were growing. So I had to do super random things that I didn't think I would ever do, administrative stuff like accounting, budget, forecasting, etc. And it was really exciting. And um, 6 months in, I randomly got this opportunity came in front of me, and I ended up getting recruited into this tech startup that I'm currently working at. The company is called Newton X, and we're building this knowledge access platform. It's really great. We're disrupting the market research industry, the recruiting industry, and we're a high growth startup. So it's very different from the path I originally imagined I was going down, but also something that I figured out on the way. I did want to work at a startup where I could play multiple roles and wear different hats and just honestly learn about what it's like to run a business, grow a business, because that's something that I'm interested in and that I want to do in the future.
This sounds so exciting. All the best with this new job and the startup. Uh, So switching gears now, let's get to know Tanvi a little bit more. I'm going to ask you a few rapid fire questions. And the first one is during this work from home kind of sheltered in place situation, what are the 2, 3 things that you learned about yourself or you wish that you can do?
That's a great question. One of the things that I learned about myself is I can really keep myself busy just by myself. I'm all alone in my apartment, and maybe it has something to do with the fact that I'm an only child. I'm totally fine being alone, and okay, like being connected with my friends and family over FaceTime. So that's something that I learned. A second thing that I learned is that I really need to structure and manage my time in the day. I feel like with work, it was easy to kind of separate work because I would be in an office and working from an office. And then once I was out, I had like my social life that I could go to and home to come and chill. But now the home is everything. And so I've definitely, started I guess, yeah, like structuring my day more and, like time blocking and like, this is my free time. This is my workspace. That is my creative side of the apartment, little apartment that I live in. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing is I really miss home. I love India and I miss my family. And this time has just made me realize how much India means to me. Yeah, and like it's a good time to think about next steps.
Great. So you're always welcome back. India needs more startups, smart people.
Can't
So
wait
yeah.
to be back.
So fine. And let's move to the next question. If you were to pick 3 words that describe or adjectives that capture your strengths, what would they be?
Toughest question out there. 3 words. I would say all right. I would say social, um, multitasker, and uh, damn,
Okay.
talkative. Talkative. I guess that goes
Great.
with like social, but positive, positive. I changed my third one.
Super.
Positive.
So about high school years and the application process, there are listeners, mostly high school kids, on this podcast. What would you advise in general students to should do about this journey of applying and then seeking to study abroad half the way across the globe? What are the wise reflections you have after having done that?
um, yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, one of the biggest advice that I would give is to not only look at rankings. I feel like your college experience has a lot of factors that come into play. How good your school is and the prestige is definitely one of them. Not denying, the great education that you can get from Ivy Leagues, for example, compared to other colleges. But it is not the only factor, and it almost might not be the most important factor. There are a lot of other things to consider. And for me personally, I knew that I needed to be in a city. I was not sure how I would be in like a campus environment. And so one of the considerations that I had when applying to college was that I wanted to be in a large city. It didn't have to be New York. It could be Atlanta or Chicago. But I did want to be, around in a city, yeah, around that kind of environment. And so that was a factor that I took into consideration. And also just, there are a lot of colleges out there that have really good programs, like very specialized programs, but they may not be, your top 5 ranking colleges overall. And I think it's important to think about exactly what it is that you want to do and how good that school does it. And then
Fantastic.
another thing
Yeah, go ahead.
also, sorry, the last thing is, I think just like if you're able to study abroad, I would 100% recommend it. I feel like I would deter anybody who has gotten acceptances, but maybe not from their primary, like top colleges. I would deter them from thinking that, oh, it's not worth it, I shouldn't go. I think the experience of leaving home and going somewhere else, being around all different kinds of people, is something that is unmatchable. And if you have the capabilities of studying abroad, you should definitely do it, no matter where it is.
Thank you, Tanvi. It was so wonderful chatting with you. And I don't think you're too talkative. I think you're very insightful. And so it's been a
Thank
pleasure
you.
reconnecting, and look forward to inviting you to our panels if time zone sort of scheduling permits. So yeah, let's stay in touch.
Absolutely.